Hello everybody, it's Josie here. I am going to be doing my wrap-up for the Queer Lit Readathon that I took part in. So it ran from the 2nd to the 8th of June, and it's kind of a byproduct also of Pride month, which is kind of Pride June. So perfect time to have the readathon, and I just want to thank the hosts because I had tons of fun. I had tons of fun reading queer books, which I read a lot of anyway, but it's quite nice to kind of take part and have everybody else read along as well. So I'm going to go through the ones that I managed to get through. I did manage to get through most of my TBR. Yay. There was one book that was the follow-up to The Circle, which is called Fire, which is part of the Engels Force trilogy. It's kind of like a witchy teen witch translated series. It is a very big book. I think it's like 700 odd pages. So I didn't finish that one, but I'm going to be doing a separate wrap up on that one anyway for the rest of the month because I am reading a lot of queer lit anyway in June to celebrate Pride Month. But let me talk about the books I did get through. So the first one, I'm not going to talk too much about this one because first of all, this wasn't actually on my TBR for the readathon. This book came and I'd ordered it, and it's probably my most anticipated release of the year to date, and I had to read it. So I did a bit of a vlog earlier on in the week when I started the readathon, and I was reading this and I couldn't put it down. It is incredible. It is The Lost Coast by Amy Rose Capetta. First of all, stunning cover, and it's got all the nice pride colours on it. And so this is basically about 6 queer teen witches. They're practicing magic, they're kissing each other, there is a mystery, it's got like a thriller element to it, it has a beautiful friendship element to it. It is incredible. I'm going to do a separate video on this to talk about my feelings about it, but suffice it to say, it's a 5-star read. I adored it. Watch the separate video when that one goes up if you want more info on this one, but loved this book. So anyway, what was on my TBR? So the first one I had on my TBR was this one here. It's Buffering by Hannah Hart, and how cool. This is such a cool cover. So this was for the non-fic. Hannah Hart is a YouTuber, vlogger, blogger, writer. She's pretty awesome. She came out as queer. She actually... So it's really interesting. She did this sort of series called My Drunk Kitchen, and I didn't realize until I read the book is that she'd actually done that first series on YouTube, or that first episode, to just cheer her friend up. I think that's really sweet, and then it kind of went viral and blew up, and she became really famous, and people knew who she was, and this is kind of just her life story, and I hadn't realized, I love this book, let me just say, I had not realized that she had such a... I want to say tragic because it's pretty awful. Her childhood is not great. Just what happened to her in her childhood. Her mom was schizophrenic. So, you know, the kids were a little bit, I guess, neglected, not a little bit, quite a lot neglected, and very poor. But she writes about it, it's really tragic, it's really sad, but she writes about it with such humor, and she really, you can see that she's been through so much. She's been through her own struggles with mental health. She's been through her own struggle with the fact that she was raised religious, and, you know, being gay. Her father is, oh God, is he Jehovah's Witness? Yeah, I think Jehovah's Witness. And being gay is not accepted in the religion, and it's something that she had to come to terms with herself, you know, coming out, being herself, coming out publicly, and then also her own struggles around mental health. It is fantastic. I think it's funny because sometimes autobiographies, I think they can be really hit and miss. Sometimes people are really interesting, they've had really interesting lives, and you read it and you think, wow, that was incredible. And you get something out of it as well. And then sometimes you read them, you just think, why? Like, either you know everything about the person or it just isn't particularly interesting. Like, it didn't need to be put down on a page. I mean, my life doesn't need to be put down on a page. So I think that this was really, really good, really interesting, really insightful. A lot of humor in it. A lot of heart and a lot of humor. It was great, so I really like this. Also, I got this gorgeous hardback first edition in a charity shop, and it kind of looked like it hadn't been read, and it is fantastic. This will be staying on my shelves. 4.5, maybe bump it up to a 5-star read. I really liked it. The next one, okay, so this one, a love story for bewildered girls. And I think I picked this, no, I know I picked this under You See Yourself in a Book, or in a character. And if I'm totally honest, I didn't realize how close to home this actually would hit. So you've got a group of characters. So the main narrative focuses or switches between three different POVs. So you've got three different characters. One she is a successful lawyer, and she's not queer. She dates men. She dates a series of men, and in this book she finds a particular man, and he's no good for her. And then there's a storyline there. Then her roommate Violet is one of the. So when the story starts, Violet is very kind of depressed. She doesn't want to get out of bed. Her roommate's constantly trying to get her out of bed. And you can just sense the depression, kind of the melancholy in her. And she then actually goes out and meets a woman. Now, she's dated men all her life. So her character is essentially bisexual. And she meets a woman. And then you have a third character. Is it Grace or Annie? Oh, I can't remember now. Grace, yeah. So Grace is the third character, and she meets a girl at a party, or she sees a girl at a party, and she sees her, and I think the girl's wearing long earrings, and she kind of compliments her on her earrings, but the girl kind of blows her off a little bit. And she kind of, I guess, falls into instant lust with this girl, and she sees her a couple of times. And then they start dating. So you've kind of got these three storylines. You get a bit of their background, you get a bit of their family. You kind of get an insight into what they're thinking. Particularly the character of Grace really hit home with me. Again, she's kind of in her early 30s. She's got a successful career. She's a therapist. You know, she lives on her own. She has all these. She kind of, I guess, she's successful in that sense in life. But she's looking for someone to love. You know, that emotional attachment, it's not easy for her. And it is incredibly poignant. I did like, sometimes in some parts. But I really enjoyed it. It is written, there is some kind of there's some humor in it as well. So it's not all kind of dreary at all. It's written with humor. I loved the three intertwining stories. Thought they were really interesting. There were points, I think, a bit with some parent storylines that I didn't necessarily think were needed in the book. So that's why I kind of class this more as a 4-star, maybe 4.5-star book, because there were bits that I wasn't necessarily, I just thought there were some storylines that took you out a little bit of the three main storylines. And I also guessed that kind of the little twist, which obviously I won't say, but all in all, I really enjoyed it. I did see myself in it. So 4-star, maybe 4.5-star for me. Like that one. This was a good readathon, let me just say. So the next one is All the Invisible Things by Oleg Collins. So this book focuses on a girl who, what is her name? Vetty, yeah. Vetty, who, she moved away 4 years ago from kind of when the story starts, with her family, her brother, her father and her sister. And they moved away to go stay with her aunt and her aunt's girlfriend, because her mother died. And her father was trying to get over it. You know, they needed to move away to Cambridge, this is set in the UK, and kind of almost hide out. So 4 years later, they've decided to come back to London. Her father needs to come back for his job. And so that's really where the story kicks off. So you have Vetty coming back to Camden in London. And one of the first people she sees is Pez, who is kind of her childhood friend. But they sort of lost touch while she was gone in Cambridge. And when she comes back, she finds him quite changed. She finds him very different. So this book talks about that. It talks about that nature of friendship, and you know how we change, particularly in our teens. I think you know you develop, you change. And what can happen to you, and that idea of that disconnect as well, of somebody you knew, you kind of disconnect with them, communication. That is a really interesting storyline. The other piece, where the kind of queer piece comes in, is that Vetty is questioning her sexuality right from the beginning. She thinks she might be bisexual, so there's an exploration of that in the book, which is great. You also have these two side characters, which are really great. You've got her aunt and her aunt's girlfriend, to be wife, so they're about to get married, so they're They go off to the aunt's wedding as well, which is, there's a sort of, that's quite a sweet storyline as well. But it's this idea, but again, essential themes of finding yourself, being brave enough to be who you are, and friendship and connection, you know, what's real, what isn't, you know, communication, just talk to each other, say what's going on. There are some darker elements in this, there's some lighter bits as well. Again, I thought it was a good book. I don't know why, I'm kind of leaning towards 3.5 stars. I don't know if I'm just being mean to, but I just something, yeah. There was some element missing, and I guess maybe the bisexual element, in the sense that throughout the book she doesn't actually have a relationship with a girl. The love interest is a boy. Just say that off the bat. So if you're looking for that, isn't necessarily in there. Maybe that's, I'm being terrible. Maybe that's why I'm knocking it down to 3.5, but still an enjoyable read, and I think some really interesting themes and important themes, and a really great cover. Then the next one I read is The Danish Girl, and this one is, I suppose, like a modern day classic. It focuses, so it's the fictionalized tale of the first transgender woman. Einar and his wife Greta, they live in Denmark, and Einar realizes that he has this almost other person living inside of him called Lily. He names her Lily, and it's kind of his journey of sort of letting Lily out and becoming Lily, and becoming the first person to actually undergo transgender surgery, and also the story of him and his wife, and her wife later on, and how Greta deals with that. Very interesting, very poignant, very important book. It's really odd. I did have a bit of an issue, particularly in the beginning, with Greta's character. So they're both artists, and it starts off where Greta is painting, and she is painting a portrait of a woman. And she basically says to Einar, come here, this woman isn't available right now to sit for a portrait, but I want to draw her, kind of her legs. So she asks him to put on the woman's stockings and like shoes. And he kind of does that very forcibly. She kind of forces him to do that. He doesn't really want to do it. So he does that, and then she's like, oh, put on the dress as well, put on the dress as well. And he's just a bit like, oh, I don't want to do it. But he does. And then he's like, yeah, but please don't, you know, share this with anyone. And then there's a moment where she then gets the woman to come in, and she kind of like goes, ha ha, look at Einar in the dress. And it was just really bizarre. It was horrible. I didn't like it. But also, I felt like it didn't chime with then the rest of the book, where she is actually supporting Einar becoming Lily, but there are kind of times when she's not. That's why I don't know if I like the way the character of Greta was written. I don't know if that's how she really was, but I don't know. I wasn't, yeah. So again, I would give this a 3.5 star, because there were just elements, and then you got quite a lot of backstory into Greta's backstory, and like the first husband she had, and I wasn't really that interested in that. And I think it took away from kind of the central story of Einar, and really the exploration of that relationship between the two of them. I can't explain, I just don't know how well written I thought that was. So 3.5 stars on that one. But like I said, quite really important, poignant, interesting, and it gives you sort of, yes, it's fictionalized, but it gives you an idea of what Lily went through to become Lily, and gives you a bit of a nice insight into that idea of having someone else inside of you and being someone else. And then the last book I want to talk about, I probably won't talk about this one for too long because I want to do a separate video, is We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. Basically, and I just put a post up on Facebook to say this, I cried from beginning to end. This book is phenomenal. It is the most beautiful book on loneliness, on grief, love, loss, friendship, that I've maybe ever read. People rave about this book, and now I know why. It is incredible. It is very sad. If it does not make you cry, again, there were elements that I could really identify with. There are elements that that hit quite close to home for me. But it really is beautiful. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous read. It's not a long book, but I think it puts everything it needs to into it, because that's what I was a bit afraid of. It's not that long. I think it's like 230 pages. But God, does it have heart? God, does it have punch? It's spectacular. I highly recommend. This is 5-star, easiest 5 stars I think I've given all year. Probably that and The Lost Coast, 2 very different books. And yeah, it's spectacular. And you've got this main character of Marin. Sorry, I didn't even go into it because I just figured people know. I've got this main character of Marin who, her grandfather's died. And she basically disappears off to college. She doesn't tell anyone. So she lives in San Francisco. She gets on a plane, she goes to New York. And her best friend Mabel, so the story picks up where Mabel comes to visit her over Christmas break. Everyone else at the university has gone home. Marin is the only one that's staying in the dorms. And Mabel's come to visit her for a few days. And there is also a backstory there between, so Mabel and Marin are best friends, but also she describes this perfect summer of love where her and Mabel were more than just friends. And again, it's about communication, about dealing with grief and dealing with that profound sense of loneliness, depression, reinventing yourself, finding out who you are, finding out things about other people that you didn't know, and coming to grips with that and trying to remember them as they were. It is a gorgeous book. Highly, highly recommend it. Yeah, absolutely. It's not happy, but I think at the end there's uplift, but it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Recommend it, recommend. And then I'll leave you, because I don't want to leave you on a sad note, I'll leave you with my bookmark. Isn't that the best Pride bookmark you have ever seen? Anyway, that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know if you've read any of these books, what you think of them. Let me know what you read for Pride. I'd love to know. And let me know if you have any recommendations. And I'll speak to you guys all soon. Bye.